Good evening, everyone. My name's Carol Allman Wharton. I'm the Executive Director here at Ollie at Berkshire Community College, and I am delighted to welcome you this evening. I want to also thank our Ollie sponsor, Berkshire Health Systems, berkshirehealthsystems.org, and our Distinguished Speaker Series sponsor, Kimball Farms Life Care, kimballfarms.org. You can go to berkshireollie.org/events to see our full calendar of programming. And just a few highlights to note for tonight. Our winter session of courses will begin on January 20th, and registration is now open at berkshireollie.org/winter 2026. There are a number of lectures and workshops in January that will come even before January 20th, and I encourage you to take a look at that full calendar at berkshireollie.org/events, which I'll put in the chat in just a moment. As we go along tonight, you're welcome to put questions in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. Tonight, we welcome Dr. Pamela Franks, the class of 1956 director of the Williams College Museum of Art. A specialist in modern and contemporary art, she has devoted her career to unlocking the potential of college and university art museums, working with students, collaborating with artists, fostering inclusive academic and public engagement, and training future generations of museum professionals. Franks' arrival at Williams in 2018 launched a period of collaborative planning for WCMA's first purpose-built building designed by, I should have double-checked what these acronyms mean, SOIL, architects, and scheduled to open in 2027. Prior to WCMA, she worked at the Yale University Art Gallery as Senior Deputy Director and Seymour H. Knox Jr., Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art, where she played a central role in a major renovation and expansion project completed in 2012 at the Nasher Sculpture Center in Dallas during construction and through the museum's opening in 2003. Franks received her PhD in art history from the University of Texas at Austin in 2000 and is a graduate of the Getty Leadership Institute 2008 and the National Art Strategies Chief Executive Program in 2019. Welcome, Pamela Franks, and I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Carol, for that lovely introduction, and thank you everyone who's listening in for your interest in the Williams College Museum of Art. It's really wonderful to be here with you. I hope many of you have had a chance to visit the museum, and please know that you're all invited. We are free. We are open to the public. We will be opening for the spring semester on January 20th. So enjoy some of the winter months and into the spring with a visit to the Williams College Museum of Art. In this talk, I thought I would talk a bit about the museum's history, the collection, the teaching program, but mostly focus on our current project of building our new home. You can see a rendering of the new building here on the screen, and I hope to convey some of what's so exciting about the project and the future of WCMA. I should tell you that, just as one note, that we do often refer to the Williams College Museum of Art as WCMA. So that's our acronym, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say WCMA periodically. Oops. I have to be, here we go. So right now, the building construction site looks like this. We're about 14 months into construction. And I think what you can tell here is that the building is starting to come above ground, but you can also tell that it's actually in an incredibly beautiful site in the landscape. Over the summer, concrete was poured for the foundation and walls for what would be the lower level dedicated to art receiving and preparation, all the workspaces, art storage, mechanical support spaces, all these very, very important functions for museums. Just this month in November, well, I guess last month now, the mass timber for the building's structure, and I'll talk more about mass timber as we move along, started arriving by weekly truckloads. And over the next few months, we'll see the new museum building taking shape section by section as that mass timber is being installed. So in my talk today, I hope to show what's so exciting about this project and the future of WCMA. And I think I'll just jump in. So first, a little bit about the history and founding of the museum. We reside in Lawrence Hall on campus today. It's a building made up of many additions. And let's see, the original building was a two-story octagonal brick structure designed by architect Thomas Tefft as the first college library in the 1840s. It was funded by and named for a merchant manufacturer and self-made millionaire Amos Lawrence. There's a portrait of Amos Lawrence here on the screen, and I think from looking at the portrait, you can get a sense pretty clearly and quickly of what Lawrence is a merchant manufacturer of. That's right, textiles. His domain is really clearly messaged by the rich brocade of the robe. Lawrence Hall, the library, predated the founding of the museum by 80 years. But there was much interest in art and collecting through those years leading up to the museum's founding. So even before the museum was founded, there's a history of art at Williams. The first works of art that came into Williams College collection came in 1851, long before there was a museum. These are two of hundreds of relief sculptures commissioned by Osher Nasser Paul II around the 800s BCE to adorn his palace. Many colleges and universities in New England have examples. You might have seen them in other museums in our region, and these are still among the most powerful works in the collection. In the late 1880s, the college accepted its first substantial art collection. Eliza Peters Field memorialized her husband, John W. Field, by donating their collection of 85 objects, including 74 oil paintings, to Williams. She also donated funds to build wings to the east and west of the octagon to house the collection. Examples include John Lafarge, Magnolia grandiflora, John Frederick Kensett's Lake George, as well as Greek, Etruscan, Roman, and pre-Columbian artifacts. 19th century French bronzes. It was quite a start. The range and history of cultures represented by the field gift sets a foundation for the growth of the museum's broad-reaching collection as it has subsequently developed. So after all of this lead up, the museum was founded in 1926-27 by Carl E. Weston, who was Williams' class of 1896 and the college's Amos Lawrence Professor of Art. So the museum's purpose was to offer Williams College students the opportunity for firsthand observation of fine works of art. And when the museum opens in 1927, so it was founded, it was initiated in 1926, but opened in 1927, another wing was added for classroom instruction in art and the classics. So this addition brings art and classrooms together, leading to a new approach in the educational use of the art object. Now, as WCMA approaches its centennial, and we plan for a dynamic museum for the next century, so much has changed, of course, but the core of close and direct observation of works of art, the lively exchange of ideas around art, and the sparking of lifelong passion for art, these are all still very much at the heart of what we do. Over the years, WCMA's collection has continued to grow. Lane Faison became the director of the museum in 1848. He was director for 28 years, and the only way to put it is he was utterly formative for our institution. He was an incredibly inspiring teacher of many generations. During his time as director of the museum and professor in the art department, the college's art history curriculum expanded significantly. So did the museum's collections. Collection priorities were defined under his leadership as American art, modern and contemporary art, the art of Asia, and other non-Western civilizations. One other area of particular collection depth is the work of brothers Charles and Maurice Prendergast. Late 19th century Boston and New York based, Maurice was a painter, Charles an arts and crafts woodworker and frame maker. In 1983, Eugenie Prendergast, widow of Charles, donated approximately 400 works by the Prendergast brothers, as well as their papers, making WCMA the premier research resource for their work. Interestingly, neither brother nor Eugenie were earlier affiliated with the college or the museum. Mrs. Prendergast strongly, really just supported very much the use of artworks in education, which led her to Williams. Also in the 1980s, Williams developed a reputation for the many renowned art museum directors and curators who came out of the college. The nickname Williams Art Mafia gets thrown around, And that can seem a little exclusive, and I'd just as soon do without the exclusiveness of it. But the professional arts community that links back to Williams alumni continues to this day, and it's a really important force in museums and in the art world in general. Offering mentorship and opportunities for students to explore work in the arts, both at the undergraduate level and through our collaborations with the Williams MA program in art history, is still very much at the core of what we do. An outgrowth of this professional community is the Williams Graduate Program in the History of Art. It's truly one of the best standalone art history MA programs out there. It was founded in 1972, and the collaboration between WCMA and Williams Grad Art has been ongoing throughout its history, and it's really fed this tradition of arts leadership. So I thought I'd share just a few more slides of our collection to give you a sense of the range. This is a painting by George Inness, Twilight from 1860. Knowing that Kevin Murphy recently gave a talk to the Ollie group, I think he was talking about James Van Der Zee, but he probably talked about other works in the collection. I thought I'd just share, a few slides and see if I can kind of set a little bit of a reminder for you all. This stunning Hudson River School landscape is a real favorite of mine. At this moment in his career, Ennis approached landscape in the spirit of scientific study, so I think it's particularly a wonderful fit for a liberal arts setting where the examination and learning with art really crosses disciplinary boundaries. The Grant Wood's Death on Ridge Road from 1935 is a true destination painting for the Williams College Museum of Art. This painting came into the collection in 1947 as a gift of Cole Porter, who was not a Williams grad, but a dedicated local. The subject of the painting, a crash about to happen, captures the anxiety around the coming of modernity, the clash between rural agrarian and industrial life, class differences. And it's really an extraordinary work. This wonderful little painting by Diego Rivera was another in the group of 7 works gifted by Cole Porter. And our collections really let students think about American art as defined beyond just the United States. Another remarkable donor, James Thrall Sobey, was Williams' class of 1928 and became a renowned curator at MoMA. He offered this painting to the museum in 1950, and it's really just a fabulous psychological landscape by the Chilean painter Mata in response to rain during summer in a kind of Mexican landscape, using automatic painting techniques to access his subconscious. So just a stellar surrealist work for the collection. This is a wonderful painting on cloth. It's a Peshwai from Rajasthan in India from the early 20th century. It was made to adorn the Srinathi temple in Rajasthan. We have several of these works in our collection. They're going to be incredibly eye-opening when they go on display. We haven't had a chance to display them previously, and now that we'll have more display spaces and larger display spaces, we'll have that opportunity. WCMA is well known for our collection of South Asian miniature paintings. It's a real strength. A few examples from the 16th to the 18th century are on the screen now. These are very popular for teaching, including courses across many disciplines. We have geosciences courses, study the compositions of pigments used in the painting. A Williams art professor trained in traditional miniature painting techniques has taught courses about the history and actual process of this tradition. I mentioned James Van Der Zee before in the context of the talk that Kevin Murphy gave a while back. WCMA has an exceptional collection of photographs, and photography is one of the most sought after mediums for teaching. I selected this example both because I wanted to tie back to Kevin's talk, but also because James Van Der Zee is originally from the Berkshires. This is James Van Der Zee's The Last Goodbye from 1923. So Van Der Zee's originally from Lenox, and then later moved to Harlem, where he was one of the most sought after portrait photographers between the 2 world wars. The flag, the helmet, the bag suggest he's soon going off to war. And this is indeed a feral portrait of a departing soldier. So in recent years, we've actually added multiple more photographs by van der Zee to the collection in recognition, of course, of his accomplishment as a photographer, but also as part of WICMA's commitment to local and regional history, and also to African American art and artists. These are two of more than 20 photographs by the iconic mid-20th century photographer Walker Evans, who actually attended Williams for a year. He studied French literature at Williams and then dropped out and reportedly spent all of his time in the library for the year that he was at Williams. This dance crest made by the Ajaghem cultural group in the 20th century in West Africa would have been worn on the top of a dancer's head during performances. We've recently grown our collection of African art through gifts and purchases that have greatly expanded our capacity for teaching. And WICMA's also very committed to stewarding public art across Williams campus so that students in all of our community can encounter art as they move across the landscape of campus. This is an exciting foundation to build on as we move toward our new building, where we will commission outdoor sculpture for the new museum, and I'll return to that a bit later. We continue to expand the collection. One recent gift is this stunning large-scale Helen Frankenthaler painting. It's called Sacrifice Decision. It was made in 1981. It was made the year after Helen Frankenthaler was an artist in residence at Williams. It marks a real transitional point in her career from one phase and focus to the next. And so it's a real kind of moment of learning and transformation, which is very much in keeping with our setting and our priorities as a college museum. Another recent acquisition, we recently received a significant gift of traditional Tibetan Buddhist ruled paintings called tankas from the Jack Shear collection to be shared among the art museums of Williams, Skidmore, and Vassar colleges. This is an exciting gift because it prompts us to work with our colleagues at other liberal arts colleges with great museums, and also because it really offers great depth in Tibetan art. We acquire art through a course called Acquiring Art, co-taught again by our curator, Kevin Murphy, and also an economics professor. And in this course, students visited auction houses and galleries to research works of art that would meet the needs of the museum for teaching and exhibition. They ultimately propose works for acquisition. And it's just another really great example of how we involve students in all aspects of the museum's work. The example I'm showing you here is a 1955 painting called Lowly Splendor by the Japanese-American Hawaiian-born artist Ralph Iwamoto. I thought it was an interesting one to highlight because when students proposed this work, they suggested that it could open up conversations about Williams' complex relationship with Hawaii. As generations of Williams educated missionaries and business people were involved in the overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy and the raising of much of the local landscape to create pineapple plantations. And in addition, students were particularly interested in collecting works by Asian American artists, as Williams had just established an Asian American Studies program. So faculty in departments ranging from biology to environmental studies to history also expressed interest in teaching with the work, but it was a terrific way of sort of marking the inauguration of the Asian American Studies program. We have a wonderful program called WALLS, Williams Art Loans for Living Spaces. This is another way of connecting students with our collection. We loan students works of art that they can install in their dorm rooms and live with over the course of the school year. And it really allows students to learn the joys of living with art. So across the board, we're engaging with students and the academic community in all kinds of creative ways. So I wanted to provide that background to give you a bit of a sense of how every decision we're making And all of everything we're thinking about for the new museum building is really driven by the priorities and the program of the museum. Hopefully, the sense of the rich history of WCMA and the foundation on which we're building today as we approach our 100th anniversary will come through as we talk about the design and the decisions that we've made with the new building. So this is the view from the south. And so if you are familiar with Williamstown, if you know the roundabout, if you're standing in Field Park in the middle of the roundabout looking north, this is the view of the building that you will eventually see. It's obviously only partially built yet, as you saw in that first slide. Um, but essentially, we needed a new building. WCMA has never had a purpose-built building, and we wanted to, in order to better steward and share our collection and even more fully welcome and engage students and community members, design a building that was very welcoming and would be conducive to all kinds of creative inspiration and learning. We decided to work with the architecture firm Solid Objectives, Eidenberg Lew, as Carol said in her introduction, Soil. And we have been calling the firm Soil for the last several years that we've been working with them. They've recently started using their full name a little more, Solid Objectives, Eidenberg Lew. So I'll go back and forth between the two. So the building is designed to be an inviting form, sculptural, in harmony with its beautiful natural surroundings. It's carefully planned as a state-of-the-art, purpose-built museum that will offer all kinds of ways in to welcome people. The south view rendering also highlights how the sculptural form and the organic roof line of the building is an elegant reflection of the surrounding mountains. And the roof itself drapes over the ground floor program, areas of galleries, the lobby, study center, auditorium, cafe, in this kind of organic sweeping form. So Soil, Solid Objectives, Eidenberg, Lew, are our designers, our design architects. They are a young international firm based in Brooklyn, very focused on cultural projects, a lot of projects focused on art and education. The firm is led by Florian Eidenberg and Jing Liu, who are pictured on the left. A couple of prior projects by Soil here, Avant Arts on the left in Brooklyn, and the Manetti Shrem Museum in Davis, California, show recent examples of their work and how they use materials very sensitively, engage with the landscape, and sort of use curvilinear forms to kind of create a continuity between the context and the buildings themselves. And that certainly will be true of the new WCMA. This is the view from the southeast, so just about 45 degrees from that south view that I showed earlier. And the approach to the building, you can kind of see how dynamic the effect of the building is, and the sculptural roof form has very different forms, looks very different depending on your angle of approach. And the view from the southeast also really gives you a sense of how, as you walk up to the building, you're welcomed by this beautiful flowering meadow and the landscape. And then the transparency of the building draws you in because you can see people both under the overhang on the patio and also through the glass in the various spaces of the building. So it's really clear that this is a place of art. It's a very creative form in and of itself, very elegant presence, sculptural presence, but it's also a place of people because you can see people as you walk up to it, and it's very welcoming in that way. This is an early architectural model that we worked with, and I like to include this because it really shows the logic. The museum is the public spaces of the museum and the educational spaces. So the galleries and the classrooms and the common areas, the gathering spaces, are all on the ground floor. So it's an expansive ground floor experience for the visitor, and it's a beautiful kind of flow from space to space. But I think this model really shows how the pavilion structure, so there's, different groupings of spaces that form pavilions, really becomes the kind of uh, organizational principle of this building. This is a rendering of what the main lobby will look like. There is an entrance to the south and an entrance to the west, and both entrances converge in the Grand Central lobby, which will be a great gathering place for people arriving at the museum, but also a wonderful place for public assemblies and gatherings. The lobby too is the place where you'll first really encounter the continuity of the exterior to the interior, both in the mass timber structure, which you see in the ceiling here, and in the masonry cladding of the pavilions. So in the common areas, we're leaving this mass timber structure exposed because it's really beautiful. It's warm, it's welcoming. The wood just has a really great look and feel. But it also allows visitors to sort of ask questions about what this structure is, how it's made, and then that allows the building to itself become a kind of catalyst for learning. Mass timber is a very sustainable material, and that was part of the choice. I'll talk more about that in a bit. The courtyard is at the center of this ground floor expanse that I was describing. Within the building, right at the center, there's a courtyard that brings light and green into the center, the heart of the building, really bringing nature right into the center. The masonry, I think that I was referring to a minute ago, you can see here how it extends from outside to in this kind of continuous expanse. It's a local Massachusetts masonry. It's this kind of greenish gray color that's very earthen in tones, and it creates a real kind of material sensibility of the experience of the space, and I think adds to this sculptural experience. So teaching and learning and the educational mission of the College Museum are central. The museum is a hub and a lab for learning on campus. Collaborations with students and faculty are at the heart of what we do. We're able to take that exciting exchange among students, faculty, and art, and kind of make it available to the larger public through our program, and really showcase the possibilities of what can happen when people connect around art. Our academic engagement program is the kind of engine of all of these connections and discoveries that become sort of um, vital forces for the overall program. And I think just, the kind of numbers of courses that I'm including here in these summary slides give you a sense of the real kind of everyday and very vibrant engagement of the curricular life, whether it's the art department or other departments. As you can see, 140 courses from 30 different academic departments. It's really a very cross-disciplinary environment. Object Lab is a hybrid gallery classroom that's open to the public. It'll be open again on January 20th. I do hope you'll come see. And courses from across all disciplines select works from the collection, install them in the gallery space with a description of the course. So it's really a great indicator of how art can be integrated and actually push the possibilities of what can happen in formal instruction across disciplines. So right now we're operating on a limited footprint, and basically we have one object study classroom where professors are able to pull works for close looking and study in conjunction with their classes, the Rose Gallery, and then Object Lab, as I say. And that will open again in January 20th for the spring semester. So the new museum, one of the things that's really needed and very important for us is that we do need more teaching spaces. We have one object study classroom right now, the Rose Gallery, as I mentioned. It's always completely booked. And so in the new museum, we will have two object study classrooms, a digital humanities classroom, a research center, a dedicated research center, which we don't have now for the collection, and a seminar room where groups can gather after having spent time in the gallery. So all in all, it's an enormous, almost 600% increase in the study center and classroom spaces. And this slide just gives you a sense of how the object study classrooms will be equipped to display art so that classes can observe closely, and then rotate easily for the next class to come in. It's a very intimate experience, a very direct encounter. The Digital Humanities Classroom is a dedicated classroom that will provide space for collections research based in new technologies and digital techniques, including microscopy, technical imaging, data analysis. And this is really exciting. We are doing this work already. We're doing it in the Rose Gallery. Sometimes we're doing it in other spaces that we're just taking over. But WICMA is at the forefront of object-based digital humanities. And when you think about digital humanities, oftentimes it's based in a library, it's text-based. By having a kind of art collection-based digital humanities program, we are able to, really use a distinct set of digital tools to further the research on these objects. And the classroom will allow students to be involved with that work actively from, every step of the way. So all of the classrooms in the research center and the seminar room that I've been referring to now center, they all sort of ring around a center, study center lounge. And so we know that during their time in college, students learn as much outside the classroom as they do within. And so in addition to expanding teaching spaces, the new WICMA is going to really be distinctive in that it welcomes students holistically, and affords places to gather, to study, to relax, to reflect, to look outside, to socialize, the full range of experience. Also, many students will want to connect with the museum staff and professionals and learn about those possibilities. Um, I also really love this space because it's so connected to the outside world. And one of the things, this particular rendering is a winter rendering, so it feels very current right now. And we asked the architects from the very beginning to think about this building as a seasonal building and to embrace all four seasons. And so it needs to be cozy in the winter and kind of bright and open in warmer seasons. And I think we're starting to see that take shape actually in the construction. Just recently, the roof of and ceiling of the study center lobby, this space that we're seeing right now, has gone up, and you can really start to get a sense of the space from the inside of it too. A student staff workspace above the study center lobby will provide workspace for interns as well as space for students interested in learning more about the museum to connect with each other and with our team. Special exhibition gallery, creating a purpose-built museum really let us create our ideal galleries. So there are 11 galleries altogether, and in the galleries, the reclaimed heart pine flooring and the acoustic wood panel ceilings carry the warmth of the mass timber structure through to the gallery experience and create a really neutral yet elegant and kind of warm palette for the art on display. And we wanted to create the galleries as kind of room-sized spaces to emphasize the intimate encounters with art and the direct connections, which are so characteristic of WICMA. A couple of other renderings of galleries. There are this three-way portal between galleries. Visitors can encounter choices and really allow the galleries to have to create sight lines to works of art so that it's the art that draws you through and into a gallery. And there's moments where you're not necessarily on a prescribed path, but you can be drawn through the galleries. Two of the galleries are lit by diffuse natural light through a clear story skylight and north-facing windows. Um, I think many of you are aware that previously on the site was the old Williams Inn, and it was there for many years, and perhaps outlived its glory days. But one of the things that folks do seem to really miss about the old Williams Inn are the north views, and so we wanted to um, learn from that and incorporate these north-facing windows in two of the galleries. And I think they'll really create a beautiful sense of light, a north light in the galleries. So we're starting to plan for the installations in the new museum. It's still early days, but I wanted to share a little bit about some of the priorities for the curatorial strategy. We're really focusing on taking a global lens on artistic creativity. We are the museum collection in the Northern Berkshires with a lot of breadth, historical breadth and geographical range, and we really want to make the most of that. As I've mentioned before, we're leaning into our role as a hub and a lab for interdisciplinary learning with art, and that has been true throughout our history. But I think with a new building and innovative approaches to display and interpretation, we'll be able to make that experience of the museum as hub and lab for interdisciplinary learning available to all of our visitors. And then finally, in continuation of the notion of Williams as a hub of arts leadership, our curatorial planning is very specific in that it models progressive curatorial practice that is centered on visitor experience, engagement, collaboration, and really aims toward nurturing the next generation of museum professionals. So at this point, we are thinking about the liberal arts ethos and the excitement of learning across disciplines in a very active, focused way as the organizing principle for the displays in the 11 galleries. Um, we will definitely have through lines. Sustainability will be one. I'll talk a little bit more about sustainability. An object lab, that hybrid gallery classroom that I talked about before, making curricular connections, is kind of a point of departure for the curatorial approach. Moving, it's as if a kind of course catalog is the starting point. So the range of all of the things that one could choose from to learn about the world and world making, we want to make manifest in the museum. So sustainability, museums are pretty well known or imagined, thought to be energy hogs. And the future of museums, I really believe, is tied in with museums becoming more sustainable. Williams College has very rigorous sustainability standards, and the museum needed to live up to those. So sustainability is a core tenet of the building design, and we are modeling our approach to sustainability off of the framework of Living Futures Institute, which involves approaching sustainability holistically through consideration of how the building can create a positive impact on the human and natural systems that interact with it. And one of, as I've kind of alluded to before, one of the most important aspects of the building's low energy use is its mass timber design, which can be seen, in the generous overhang in the patio image here, which allows a kind of shading that helps control light and heat. as well as water management. So in addition to wood being a renewable resource, the actual design, making use of mass timber, has all of these other kind of sustainability strategies that it can deploy. Mass timber, the carbon emissions ratio is like 2.5 times less than steel or concrete. It's quite amazing. We're working with a company in Quebec called Nordique Structures, and they're a design assist partner with us. So they're truly in this. They're the leading innovator in engineered wood products and mass timber construction. So we're working with the best. The timber is going to be sourced. It's being sourced from forests in northern Quebec, and those forests are all certified with the Forest Stewardship Council's rigorous standards. So we're very excited about that. It's an all-electric building. You can see this is a rendering of the loading dock, but at the left are air source heat pumps. It's all air source heat pumps. There's a tight envelope to this building, and a lot of strategies that are helping us save energy, like adjusting temperature and humidity based on the season, and letting it kind of move a little bit with the seasons. All in all, this building will use about 30% of the energy that a typical museum from a similar climate built since, say, 1991 would use. So it's an enormously energy efficient building compared to other museums. I've mentioned it a few times, these different gathering spaces and spaces where people can settle in. This is the North View Gallery. The triple pane insulated glass curtain wall system is part of this really advanced envelope that I'm talking about. The shade created by the roof overhang, which I mentioned before, is evident here, and that helps maintain museum conditions. And then, of course, the daylight and the views of nature support human health and happiness for the visiting public, for all of us who work in the museum. And that's an important part of our sustainability endeavors as well. These spaces will have furniture in them. When the time comes, the renderings are just really very specific to the building. Landscaping and site plan is also part of how we're thinking about the building. It's central to our sustainability goals. Our landscape architect is Reed Hildebrand Landscape Architects. They've been terrific. The starting point for our landscape was not particularly healthy, so we are renewing the landscape of the site and actually reforesting the edge. So overall, we'll have a flowering meadow and gardens that will feature native plants, the new WICMA landscape. It'll connect museum goers to nature from the first step onto the site. And of course, that continues into the courtyard, as I was saying earlier, and to the views out to the extended landscape. So it really celebrates the museum setting and architecture while being designed for resilience to climate change and seasonal shifts. This is a plan view of the landscape, which gives you a sense of the different elements, the flowering meadow, the reforested edges, that forest green, the darker forest green. There's bioretention for water management, the courtyard at the center of the ground floor. So all of this together is really integrating the landscaping with the architecture at every level. Water management is an exciting part of the sustainability plan. What you're seeing on the left here is a gigantic storm trap that's actually underneath the parking lot. So you're seeing it in this photograph, but you won't see it actually when you come to the museum and the museum's complete. It's already actually underground. The sloping roof line of the building actually allows the water to flow off into through scuppers and into basins that will catch and transport the water into the cistern that's beneath the parking lot. And then the storm trap actually treats the water that holds, and that allows it to be recycled for gray use in the museum or released very treated and released very gradually into the brook in a way that can be handled. And the capacity is all calculated for 100-year storm calculations. So, on the right, the blue lines are the kind of pathways and the way that the water flows down to that storm trap. Again, reforesting the northern and western woodlands of our site. Our site is 6 acres. And that reforestation is a key part of the landscape plan. Invasive species have been removed, dead trees have been removed, and fresh weed-free soil has been added to support new plantings. We are choosing species, obviously in conjunction with our landscape architects, Reed Hildebrand, for the reforested woodland, and are they're all very carefully selected for resistance to pests and diseases introduced by invasive species. I think over time, we feel confident that the landscape will be able to grow and evolve and actually create a much more healthy and thriving ecosystem. So definitely making the site better than we found it. The reforestation's already begun. We have planted about 300 trees. We expect to plant nearly 1,000 by the time all is said and done. And yeah, so I think the most important thing about sustainability is at the new WICMA is that it is like everything else we do, a learning opportunity. And as I started off saying that the future of museums depends on museums becoming more sustainable. The way that students can learn how to make museums function in a more green way using the new WICMA as a laboratory and a learning experience is will actually have incredible impact on museums everywhere going forward. We're very lucky to live in this incredible museum ecosystem. The new building in its location will enable even more active participation in our regional community. Will be prominently located just between the Clark and Mass MoCA. So I think that WICMA will become a beacon for the arts right as you enter Williamstown, right as you enter campus, and will become a real hub of all of the museums in the region. We're looking forward to having outdoor sculpture on the site. We're in the process of commissioning a work that will be visible as from the road as a signal of the presence of the arts in the region to anybody driving through town. We've brought 3 artists to campus who are all really wonderful to talk about their work, and they're now in the process of developing proposals for a potential sculpture on the site that will welcome visitors to the museum. Um, we also do have videos of these 3 talks, and those will be posted on our website soon. So I encourage you to watch those artist talks on video. The sign for the new Williams College Museum of Art will actually be a bench, and I love this because it invites participation from the very beginning. You can, I think the horizontal format of the bench resonates beautifully with the single-story building and the kind of horizontality of the architecture. It resonates with the participatory ethos of the museum itself. And it also is a real connector between the museum and the world. It really connects WICMA and the world because right here at this bench, there is also a bus stop, which you could take a bus to another one of the museums or to wherever you may be going, or catch a longer haul bus to New York, having perhaps picked up a coffee in the cafe, which is just behind the sign, in advance. So really exciting to think about how the museum's going to be a connector to the world. And I love the idea that public transportation is part of that. Oops. For those driving, the new WICMA also will have expanded parking facilities. That's going to be very exciting for us. We haven't had a lot of parking in the past. There will be drop-off and accessible parking, ample overflow at the nearby parking garage, a bus drop-off, so EV charging station. So all very exciting. Back to the lobby, the new building. Again, will really provide expanded spaces for community gathering where friends and neighbors can convene for programs or simply come together and have a cup of coffee. I think we're all very excited about the museum as a gathering place. And I think the kind of light-filled central lobby is going to be a very appealing place for people to gather. We'll have an auditorium. We envision the new WICMA as a resource for community members, families, school groups, a catalyst for vibrant public programs across performing and literary arts. The auditorium is designed to be highly flexible. The chairs are movable, so that different kinds of programs can happen, but we could also have dinners or receptions, other types of events, performances in this space. So that'll be a wonderful add in the new museum. And then finally, I just wanted to give a plug for our new cafe. We're in the early days of planning, but the cafe will be a real draw for community. Like the rest of the museum, the cafe is open to the public. We're hoping that it'll become a social hub where friends can meet for a bite or just sort of continue their conversation after having spent time in the galleries. Um, can't report much on what the menu will be yet, but we're all committed to making it very delicious and welcoming. In good weather, there'll be seating outside. In cooler weather, the overflow seating can go into the lobby. So we're excited about that. And we'll be opening in the fall of 2027. So I hope to see you before then. We'll stay open in a limited footprint in our Lawrence Hall location up until kind of close to when we're opening. We'll figure that out as we go. The museum's always free. It's always open to the public. Right now, we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So not weekends, but Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Please do come and visit us after January 20th. And we'll be open on a semesterly basis from now until we open the new building in the fall of 2027. So thank you very much for your interest, and I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Pamela. We do have a bunch of questions in the chat, and if, as some of them were asked earlier in the talk, so if I mistakenly asked something that you have addressed, just let me know. But
Okay.
okay. So there was a question about concerts and whether there'll be concert space in the new building like there has been in the previous.
So the auditorium that I showed has wonderful acoustics, and I think that that will lend itself to smaller scale concerts. It could seat as many as about 150 people, depending how it's set up, and it'll have a movable stage. So I do think that performances and concerts will be very special. We'll also, I love music in the galleries, and I think that we've really put a lot of attention on acoustics in the gallery spaces, and that is not only for classes and conversations, although it is for that, but I think it could also be for concerts and other types of sonic experiences.
Wonderful, thank you. And there is a question about the Saul Lewitt staircase and whether what's the future for that?
Yeah.
piece.
So WICMA in Lawrence Hall has always had a silhouette wall drawing at the staircase. It's actually, there have been three different silhouette wall drawings in that location over time. Those have actually all been on loan to the museum. They haven't been part of the museum's collection. Um, and the good news is that we have recently received a gift of a silhouette wall drawing, which will be on view in the new museum. So it'll be a different drawing. It is a graphite drawing, one of the later silhouette wall drawings. It's a scribble drawing. I don't have an image of it with me today, but it's a really beautiful, really powerful, one of the latest drawings that Lewitt made, and that will be on view in the new museum. Whether the current Lewitt drawing stays in Lawrence Hall, we don't have an answer to that yet.
Great, thank you. And did you, I don't think I heard you say this, but I might have been distracted for a moment. Did you talk about what's going to happen with the previous building and sort of what its future is?
Right. That's a good lead in from the Solowit question, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't talk about that. And it's still a little bit of work in progress, but the building will be renovated. It needs a little updating. And the art history department will stay in Lawrence Hall. They're in two floors of the building in the lower level, and we're in the upper floors. So they will stay in the building and have renovated classrooms, renovated offices, and then other arts type functions will be located throughout the building. So
Great.
that renovation will start when the museum moves out of the building.
Mhm. And slightly a little bit of a turn, could you talk a little bit about the philosophy for organizing the artwork in the new galleries?
Yeah. So it was interesting because we started by really taking a fresh look at the entire collection. We're doing a collection assessment. Moving the collection provides an opportunity that is almost unheard of in museum work to look at everything in the collection, so object by object. And so we started, just really putting fresh eyes on one work of art after another, and started with the art, I guess is my point there. And that work is ongoing, and started thinking about what is the best way to really reintroduce WICMA for its next century in its new home.
Hmm.
And so that was a big overarching question. And early ideas that we were all very committed to is making the excitement of the kind of learning and transformation that can happen engaging with art and it happens all the time in this academic context, but making that available to all visitors to the museum and making it a really kind of energizing driving force. So this kind of idea that the way that the museum can, um, be a place where people connect, where you see the world in new ways, you think something you've never thought before, you're sort of inspired by something that didn't exist before. All the kind of core kind of values that the museum represents. But then thinking about how that's going to be organized, we realized a few months into the process that in a way, the answer was actually right in front of our noses. And that was, really to lean into the structure of the college experience and think about the course catalog or object lab as a jumping off point and uh, what the options are for learning in a liberal arts college setting and thinking about what would the analogy of a survey course be in a gallery installation? What would the analogy of a seminar, a deep dive into a very specific topic be in a gallery? And how is that supported by our collection? So I guess actually what I should have probably said very first is the initial installation will be all collection works. So we're not borrowing works from other museums for the inaugural installation. So for the first year and a half, 2 years, we'll really be showcasing the collection. And with these new gallery spaces, we'll be able to show much more of the collection than we have until this point.
Mhm. Thank you. Um, we had a question about the economics of the project. How is this being funded and yeah, that's sort of the broad question. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, thank you for that. So it's a combination. It's being largely funded by philanthropy. And so there's a capital campaign to support the building project. And then a portion of it, a little less than half, is being supported directly by the college. So
That's
it's a
great.
combination.
Hmm. And there was a question about, is there any interaction with the Clark, either in this project as it's being built and once you're open with the new space, what's the connection would be there?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the great things about being in this part of the world, being in the Northern Berkshires, and it's also really great thing about our new location. The proximity to the Clark, just right up the street, is going to be so exciting. So yeah, we work with the Clark in all kinds of ways, and I think our two museums are quite different from each other, and so we can complement each other, which is great. The graduate program in art history that I mentioned earlier is one of the key ways that we work together. That's a Williams program, but it's housed at the Clark. We have at WCMA many grad art interns. Many courses take place at WCMA. So that's one linkage between the two of us. We also have many collegial contacts across all of the different museum functions between the two museums. And, now that we're moving forward with this building project, I think we have a lot of opportunities for practical collaborations as well. Thinking about like what can we learn from the Clark about having a cafe? WCMA's never had a
Hmm.
cafe before. The Clark has a wonderful cafe. What can we learn from them about that? What can we learn from them about parking or, all of the kind of practical things that we're also thinking about at the same time as we're thinking about the program. So it's really fantastic to have this partner so close by as a neighbor.
Mm, thank you. I'm just looking back. I think the other questions that we have in the chat you have addressed. I'm just taking one more look. There were some questions, practical questions about parking and stuff, but I think you did talk about that. You're talking about the bus stop and everything.
Yeah.
Um, oh, well, there was one question. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm still coughing. About the mass timber design and sort of you talked about the ecological grounding and where everything's being sourced, but can you talk about the sort of the relative difference between steel and concrete and other different building materials and why you chose what you chose?
Well, so the sustainability ambitions were so um, the were so ambitious that we really realized that mass timber was the material that would allow us to meet some of those considerations. But that
Hmm.
was just the starting point. I kind of came at it from two directions. One was aesthetic, and that was from the earliest days, the notion that the our part of the world is in, nature is so part important in our part of the world, and we're sort of the Scandinavia of North America, and that would be at home here. So the kind of look and feel was very important, and then the sustainability standards. So those two things both actually led us to this path of mass timber. Mass timber is a very fast-growing building material for lots of different kinds of buildings for these same reasons, but
Hmm.
not yet for art museums. So there's a couple of museum projects in the idea phases that are kind of relying on the the virtues of mass timber for the design, but there's not very many realized museums yet. So actually, WICMA might be the first mass timber art museum, but the first of many because there's going to be many more to come.
Thank you. Um, a couple more questions just came in as we were talking just now. What percentage of the WICMA collection can you exhibit now, and what percentage will you be able to exhibit in the new space?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and it's always very hard to answer about our collection because some of the works of art in our collection are very small, and some of the works in our collection are very large. So percentage isn't exactly accurate, but we will be able to show much more of the collection. And so I would say my sort of guesstimate is we'll be able to show about twice as much of the collection as we can show now. There is still going to be a very large percentage of the collection that's not on view, not installed in the galleries and on view. But one of the really wonderful things about this design is with all of the study rooms and the classrooms, the collection will be able to be viewed very regularly. So it's not as if works of art go into deep dark storage and never, no one ever sees them because we'll rotate our galleries, and so they will go on view. But then also in between that, many works of art will be seen in informal settings like classrooms.
Hmm. Right, and anybody working on a project or something could request access to a piece at any
Exactly,
time, right? Yeah.
exactly. And that's going to be a huge benefit of having the study center, the research space in the study center. We actually have with the one classroom that we have now, we have to balance those research requests with class requests. So having, dedicated functions for both is going to be great. And same with the digital humanities classroom, we'll really be able to, um, to lean into that work.
Excellent. Um, One question probably about the digital humanities and also digital
Mhm.
class courses. What opportunities will you have for any digital collections or connecting with programming in the building remotely? Sort of what's the scope there? Or
So I
maybe it's
think
TBD.
that is, it's still a little bit of a work in progress. As we're doing the curatorial planning, we definitely will be trying to explore the role that digital um, technologies can play in interpretation. Um, so right now we have kind of audio tour with Bloomberg Connects, which is really a great resource. And we create story maps, which sort of trace the stories behind things that you're seeing on view. And so I think with the new museum, we will be exploring what tools are best to kind of make the installations that we're developing and all of the spaces come alive.
And related to that is the how much of the collection is digitized at this point and searchable?
So I think it's about a little bit over half is
Mhm.
digitized. And it is searchable on our website most of the time. We've been having some trouble actually recently. But we're building a new website too, as well as a new building. So one of the
In
things
your
we
in your
want to
spare
work
time, right?
address in our spare time, we want to make the collection more searchable. But I think, what's really exciting now is that with the collection assessment and the all of the planning that's going on, where we're making a point of looking at everything in the collection,
Mhm.
um, we're also digitizing it as we go. So we're actually really making serious headway on our digital archive of the
Mhm.
collection.
Well, speaking of that work, as you've re-examined the collection, have there been any unexpected surprises?
Well, I think like the piece Y that I showed those large temple hangings was quite exciting surprise. We've been working with faculty in the art history department in particular, but others as well, as we're going through the collection. So bringing their expertise to bear, we're realizing, that we actually have some really exciting gems in the collection that haven't been front of mind for a while.
Mm,
So looking forward to putting those on view.
that's great. All right. I think that we've gotten to almost everything. Um, any last words of wisdom, things that you've learned in this process, or any other invitations you want to make to folks as we close tonight?
Well, I mean, I just want to invite everyone to know that WICMA is our museum, it's your museum, and it is the kind of museum in the area that is free always and has a great breadth and range of wonderful art, really excellent art. And it's a place where people in art can come together. And I just really want to encourage people to keep in touch while we're finishing up this building project over the next couple of years and make a point of coming to the museum as soon as we open and coming back regularly. And we'd love to hear from you. And it's really for all of us. So I'm grateful for the invitation to be here tonight. And I really hope that folks will look forward to the new WICMA with as much anticipation as I am and my colleagues are. And we really look forward to welcoming everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for letting us get a little peek behind the curtain of this amazing and extensive project that you're all making your way through. And I'm sure we'll see you soon over at the museum.
Thank you. Such a
All
pleasure.
right.
Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.